Some movies are so successful that they end up inspiring tons of other productions, but sometimes that inspiration goes a bit too far. Do you know which knockoffs are the boldest and weirdest copies of famous movies? And did any of them actually manage to beat the original? The Sea Beast. The movie The Sea Beast delivers an action-packed story, giant monsters, and a strange sense of déjà vu. The plot revolves around a war between humans and sea creatures, with a main character who is totally underestimated by everyone. The result? Conflict and drama. The scenery is beautiful, the creatures are amazing, but wait a minute, haven't we seen this somewhere before? Chances are yes. If your brain flashed a How to Train Your Dragon warning, congrats, you're not crazy. The similarity is striking and probably not just a coincidence. In this Netflix production, just like in the DreamWorks classic, there's a young guy who's supposed to hunt monsters but decides to adopt one instead, or something close to that. Besides the sea beast's creature, called Red, looking a lot like Toothless, you can't forget Hiccup, our skinny Viking with the look of someone who's never even held an axe, who decided to stop killing dragons, and even better, convince everyone they could be friends. That's basically the same vibe in The Sea Beast. It's not a shameless ripoff, of course, but you also can't pretend the idea came out of nowhere, on a sunny day with coconut water and pure creativity. And that feeling of, haven't I seen this before? Doesn't stop there. Over the years, plenty of movies have surfed the wave of major hits, whether by coincidence or by a big dose of creative inspiration. Come with us now to check out another video. Kung Fu Panda. If there's a movie that's been copied more times than math homework at school, it's Kung Fu Panda. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe it's Poe's charisma, the epic soundtrack, or the irresistible combo of Kung Fu plus adorable pandas. But the fact is, a bunch of smaller studios decided to ride along on the success of this movie, which raked in truckloads of money and applause worldwide. Among the most shameless clones is Chopkick Panda. Just from the name, you can tell creativity took a vacation. The main character is Zebo, a lazy panda. Surprise, surprise, who dreams of becoming a martial arts master. But of course, he has to face not only an evil tiger who wants to take over the kingdom, but also his own laziness, which might just be the biggest villain of all. And there's more. Zebo's dojo is built on top of a mystical artifact called the Amulet of Fury, which can grant ultimate protection to whoever holds it. Sound familiar? Exactly. Looks like they didn't just copy the panda, they copied the magic amulets, the threatening villains, and even the background philosophy. They just forgot to copy the quality. The weirdest part? Chopkick Panda came out in 2011, the very same year as Kung Fu Panda 2. Coincidence? Only if it's the kind of coincidence that copies the release date too. While Poe and the Furious Five were busy protecting China from a villain with big plans and dark prophecies, Zebo was trying to do, well, basically the same thing, only in 2D animation with a budget that probably fit inside a bag of instant rice. Brave. Brave came out smashing stereotypes with its bow and arrow. Forget about princesses who only care about dresses, mirrors, and charming princes. Merida showed up with messy hair, a rebellious spirit, and an aim better than a lot of pro archers. This fresh Disney take won over hearts worldwide, especially among people who always wanted to see a princess who'd rather ride through the woods than sing with birds. But as always, where there's success, there are people wanting to cash in. And that's where Braver appeared. Even though it had originally been released before Brave, the studio behind this masterpiece had the bright idea to re-release the movie with a new cover. And it wasn't just any cover. It was practically a copy of Brave's promotional art, featuring a curly red-haired archer girl in a heroic pose, smack in the middle of a forest. They even copied the font style of the movie's name. This was made by Bright Spark Production. Coincidence? Only if it's in the multiverse of ripoffs. The look was so similar that Disney had to hit them with that famous legal notice. Basically, either change this cover or get sued. Guess what happened? The cover vanished real fast. Looks like Merida's bow hits targets even off screen. Before we continue this list of the weirdest knockoffs of famous movies, drop a comment down below with the word imitation. Ratatouille. You definitely remember Ratatouille, that amazing Pixar movie that made the whole world rethink the relationship between rats and cooking pots. Even though the name comes from a traditional French dish, the real star is Remy, a sewer rat with a refined palate and a big dream: to become a top chef. Even with everyone saying no, he chased after the yes and proved that talent can come from the most unlikely places, even the sewers of Paris. But, as has basically become tradition, wherever there's success, there's someone trying to get a bite of it. That's where Ratatouille comes in. Nope, you didn't hear that wrong. A Brazilian studio called Video Brinquedo decided to release its own culinary-themed rodent adventure, just with animation that's, well, let's say homemade. The plot? A rat named Marcel, a talented chef in Rio de Janeiro, runs a luxury restaurant with his team of rat cooks. They go on secret missions to get special ingredients, while a rival restaurant desperately tries to figure out what their secret to success is. Even with a few differences here and there, the similarity to Ratatouille is so obvious it makes you hungry for justice. Despite a somewhat original script and much simpler animation, it's impossible not to see Ratatouille as Remy's distant and very uninvited cousin. Or, to put it plainly, your classic ripoff with a Brazilian accent. In the end, Ratatouille didn't win any awards or hearts, but it definitely scored a spot on the list of the most shameless knockoffs in animated movie history. Up was an absolute smash hit with audiences and at the box office. This Pixar animation told the emotional story of Carl Fredricksen, a 78-year-old balloon salesman about to lose the house where he spent his entire life with his late wife, Ellie. The property has become a target for a greedy developer who wants to build a high-rise right on top of Carl's dreams. After a scuffle, including a smack with his cane, Carl is considered a public danger and risks being sent to a nursing home. But he's not ready to give in. In one last act of freedom, Carl ties thousands of balloons to his house and flies away. His plan is to land in South America, where he and Ellie always dreamed of living. But there's one little twist. He didn't count on Russell, an 8-year-old junior wilderness explorer with infinite energy, who accidentally joins the adventure in the skies. Now, did you really think this idea was too original not to get homaged? That's where Video Brinquedo came back with its alternate version. What's up? Balloon to the rescue. Yeah, the name sounds like a desperate attempt to confuse the clueless. And the story, well, brace yourself. The plot follows a family of monster hunters who suddenly appear on a TV interview saying they found a magic stone that makes their house fly. Yes, a stone. On top of that, the stone can hypnotize the entire world. They accidentally reveal the secret to activate the hypnosis for some reason, and boom! Now a crazy villain is chasing the stone to take over the planet. Between chases in the Amazon, monsters being released through mystical portals, and hot air balloons falling from the sky with photos of the world's biggest cities, the script goes places. Far places, like a non-stop flight into the land of mockbusters, those alternative versions of big movies, launched just to ride on the original's fame. Even with its own storyline, What's Up? Balloon to the Rescue is clearly a shameless attempt to piggyback on Up. The difference is that while Pixar made everyone cry in the first 10 minutes, this knockoff will make you cry out of despair. If Up was an emotional journey through the sky, What's Up is more like a popped balloon trying to take off in the middle of a traffic jam. And now is the perfect time. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do. That way, you won't miss any updates. Shrek. One of DreamWorks' biggest hits is Shrek. The green ogre conquered the world with his sharp humor, soft heart, and of course with Donkey, the most talkative and charismatic donkey in the whole kingdom. In fact, a new version of Shrek is already in the works and is promising to stir things up. Actually, it already is. The first images and details are splitting opinions because of some new characters added to the story. Swamp drama. But speaking of inspirations, we have a curious case here from Spain. The movie Donkey Zote, produced by Lumix Studios and Filmax Animation. The story revolves around Rucio, a donkey who is tired of his boring routine in La Mancha, a region of Spain. Everything changes when a mysterious Knight of the Crescent Moon challenges Don Quixote to an epic duel. But Quixote's faithful horse, Rocinante, straight up refuses to join the adventure. That's where Rucio comes in. having to pretend to be a horse to help his friend face the challenge. Now, let's be honest, the movie does try to tell a different story with its own elements and Spanish historical setting, but it's impossible to ignore the striking similarity between Ruzio and Shrek's donkey. The chatty personality, the physical comedy, the clumsy attitude, everything feels straight out of DreamWorks' classic. A lot of fans, in fact, noticed it within the first few minutes and weren't shy about calling it out. So, even though it's not a direct plagiarism, the creators definitely seem to have taken a peek at DreamWorks archives before writing their script. You could say Ruzio isn't just any donkey. He's basically Donkey's Spanish cousin, with an accent, armor, and all. Leo the Lion. Leo the Lion is one of those movies that seems to have been born after a double marathon of The Lion King and Madagascar, with a pen in hand and zero fear of looking too similar. The story follows Leo, a young lion who just wants to fit in with his pride, but has no luck at all. On the day of his first hunt, he witnesses the tragic death of his own mother, who falls down a waterfall worthy of a soap opera. From that moment on, he develops a fear of water, and who could blame him, right? Rejected by the other lions, Leo decides to leave the savannah and move into a tree in the forest. There, he meets Savannah, a friendly elephant who ends up helping deliver twin baby elephants. And like any animated movie needs a big journey, Leo decides it's time to face his fears and go after the legendary Heart of the Jungle, a magical place his mom mentioned before she became just a memory. Joined by the elephant and other animals, Leo goes on an adventure full of unexpected encounters, existential dilemmas, and jokes that sound like they came straight out of the Madagascar script. Everything is colorful, noisy, and packed with moral lessons. In the end, Leo the Lion is an unapologetic mashup of The Lion King, with its lion protagonist, themes of overcoming challenges, and African scenery mixed with the messy comic style of Madagascar with its group of talking animals and silly gags. The animation is simple, the story is predictable, and the characters feel like they came out of a creative blender stuck on the Disney DreamWorks setting. You can't exactly say it's straight-up plagiarism, but you also can't pretend Leo roared with originality. In the end, it's clear that any creative work can be inspired by others. Art lives on references, but there's a fine line between paying tribute and just copying with a new cover. If you're a fan of Bluey and animated cartoons, we've got 2 really cool videos you'll love to watch. Thanks for hanging out, and see you next time.